If you're tired of these promos, supporters get the podcast early and ad-free. Just go to donate.bogosity.tv for the links to sign up. Welcome to the Bogosity podcast for the week of June 13, 2021, the podcast that invented the dehumidifying humidifier. This is your host, Shane Killian. Let's automatize the news of the bogus. We'll start with a pair of Supreme Court decisions, the first being the denial of certiorari of a case challenging the male-only draft. Although there currently isn't a military draft in the U.S., everyone above the age of 18 is required by law to register for selective service. Everyone, that is, who isn't female. Those failing to register could face up to 5 years in prison, a fine of up to $250,000, or both. And by the way, if you're curious, that means the sex listed at birth, so trans women are required to register while trans men are not. The National Coalition for Men filed suit basically saying that a sexist law is sexist, and therefore the selective service requirement violates the Equal Protection Clause, and the Supreme Court should overrule Roscoe v. Goldberg. They didn't take a stand on whether or not draft registration should be extended to women or ended entirely, just that you can't have two different legal requirements based on how someone is born. Roscoe v. Goldberg goes back to 1981 after President Carter decided the previous year to make all men register for the draft, even though the draft had ended 5 years earlier. But he only made the requirement for men, and the Supreme Court held that it was not a Fifth Amendment violation because, although women could enlist for the armed forces, they were prohibited from serving in combat roles. But that changed in 2013, and so the National Coalition of Men filed suit to reconsider Goldberg and won in federal district court. However, that was overturned by a unanimous decision of the 5th District Court of Appeals. So the National Coalition of Men, which according to the Southern Poverty Law Center is being misogynist, so that shows you how seriously to take them, appealed the case to the Supreme Court, but it was denied certiorari. In an attached opinion, Justice Sotomayor, joined by Justices Breyer and Kavanaugh, explained why. They mentioned some of the ways that Congress has been attempting to address the issue in recent years. The House considered a bill to end draft registration entirely in 2016, and going the other way, later that year the Armed Services Committees in the Senate and the House tried to add a rider into the NDAA to extend the requirement to women. Another failed attempt to end draft registration was made in 2019, and the following year the National Commission on Military, National, and Public Service recommended that registration requirements be extended to women. So, since Congress is making moves on the issue, and it's not clear which way they'll go, the Supreme Court feels it would be premature to hear the issue, for now at least. Quote, "It remains to be seen, of course, whether Congress will end gender-based registration under the Military Selective Service Act. But at least for now, the Court's long-standing deference to Congress on matters of national defense and military affairs cautions against granting review while Congress actively weighs the issue." The fact that any possibility of a military draft hasn't been completely eliminated as a barbaric violation of the 13th Amendment is completely reprehensible. But it may be a while before either the Supreme Court or Congress acts on that. In the meantime, here's hoping that they at least end the mandatory registration requirements for anyone. If you're looking for ways to support this channel, but you don't have any spare cash and you can't stand advertisements, you can do so by generating your own cryptocurrency. Use the links at the bottom of the description to listen to the podcast and all of my videos on bittube.tv or lbry.tv to get cryptocurrency for the creator and yourself. Or if you listen to the podcast at the podcast page, you'll also generate crypto. You can also go to airtime.bogosity.tv to get the airtime extension and generate crypto for yourself and the creators on the web anywhere you go, including my YouTube channel. Get 5 tubes free just for installing the extension and signing up, and then simply browse the web as normal. Easily monetize your favorite creators and yourself with cryptocurrency without advertising on bittube.tv or lbry.tv or with the airtime extension at airtime.bogosity.tv. The Supreme Court did rule, however, in Terry v. United States. This has to do with the Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986, which introduced a disparity in criminal penalties between crack cocaine and powder cocaine, under the completely false view that crack cocaine is much more dangerous and harmful. The real reason is that crack cocaine at the time was used more often by poor blacks and powder cocaine by rich whites. Of course, Joe Biden was a co-sponsor. The disparity was reduced in the Fair Sentencing Act of 2010, and that was made retroactive in the First Step Act of 2018. But when Taharik Terry was arrested for carrying just under 4 grams of crack in 2008, none of that had happened yet. Terry was arrested under Tier 3, which landed him over 15 years in prison, more than even the mandatory minimum for Tier 1, which was 10 years. So Terry argued that he was entitled to a reduced sentence under the First Step Act, but the Supreme Court disagreed unanimously. Justice Thomas, writing the opinion of the court, said, quote, "An offender is eligible for a sentence reduction under the First Step Act only if he previously received a sentence for a covered offense. The Act defines covered offense as a violation of a federal criminal statute, the statutory penalties for which were modified by certain provisions in the Fair Sentencing Act. Here, statutory penalties references the entire integrated phrase, a violation of a federal criminal statute. And that phrase means offense. We thus ask whether the Fair Sentencing Act modified the statutory penalties for petitioner's offense. It did not." Geez, this sounds like the pickiest English teacher ever. Quote, "Petitioner's offense is starkly different from the offenses that triggered mandatory minimums. No statutory penalty changed for subparagraph C offenders. That is hardly surprising because the Fair Sentencing Act addressed cocaine sentencing disparity, and subparagraph C had never differentiated between crack and powder offenses. The Fair Sentencing Act changed nothing in subparagraph C. If Congress abolished the crime of possession with intent to distribute, prosecutors then would have to bring charges under the lesser included offense of simple possession. But nobody would say that abolishing the first offense changed the second. In light of the clear text, we hold that Section 2A of the Fair Sentencing Act modified the statutory penalties only for subparagraph A and B crack offenses. That is, the offenses that triggered mandatory minimum penalties." Justice Sotomayor concurred, writing, quote, "Terry possessed just 3.9 grams of crack. His guidelines range would normally have been about 3 to 4 years. But Terry was sentenced as a career offender because of 2 prior drug convictions committed when he was a teenager, and for which he spent a total of only 120 days in jail. That enhancement caused Terry's guidelines range to skyrocket to about 15 to 20 years. He received a sentence of 188 months at the bottom of the guidelines range. Because the Fair Sentencing Act and the following guidelines amendments did not change their guidelines ranges, career offenders like Terry were categorically ineligible for relief, regardless of the severity or circumstances of their crimes. No one convicted under subparagraph C has a covered offense. While career offenders convicted under subparagraph A or subparagraph B can now seek resentencing, that door remains closed to career offenders convicted under subparagraph C. This is no small injustice. There is no apparent reason that career offenders sentenced under subparagraph C should be left to serve out sentences that were unduly influenced by the 100-to-1 ratio. Indeed, the bipartisan lead sponsors of the First Step Act have urged this court to hold that the act makes retroactive relief broadly available to all individuals sentenced for crack cocaine offenses before the Fair Sentencing Act. Unfortunately, the text will not bear that reading. Fortunately, Congress has numerous tools to right this injustice. Well, here's hoping that they do so. One more case where the ball's back in their court. If you're on the Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or hotel, anyone on that network can get your traffic. Do you really trust all of those strangers? For that matter, do you really trust your ISP? A VPN can protect you from prying eyes, disguise your location, and even foil government censors. It's essential in this day and age, so go to vpn.bogosity.tv and you'll be taken to BoxPN. Starting at just $2.99 a month, you can get unlimited high-speed connections to VPN servers all over the world, and they don't log connections, so your privacy is assured. Traveling abroad, just VPN home, and don't worry about what those other governments are doing. Back at home, stop your ISP from traffic shaping and messing with the quality internet access you're paying good money for. You can connect from multiple machines at once, including your smartphone or tablet, and it supports all the secure standards, including OpenVPN and SSTP. Bypass censors and surveillance with your own secure VPN connection. Go to vpn.bogosity.tv. And it's always nice to have a piece of good news. Not unexpectedly, Texas has passed constitutional carry, allowing legal firearm owners to carry handguns without having to get a permit, becoming the 20th state to do so. Several states passed similar bills this year, including Tennessee, Utah, and Iowa, and Montana and Wyoming expanded the ability to carry without a permit. It's being considered in Pennsylvania and Ohio, and it passed in Louisiana, but is likely to be vetoed by Governor John Bel Edwards. These bills come in the wake of record gun sales, including in unfriendly states like California, in the wake of the COVID pandemic and the Black Lives Matter riots. Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed the law over the objections of badge-wearing thugs and their apologists who say that this will endanger the public and police, even though statistics consistently show this to be untrue, as we've covered numerous times. Ari Freilich, State Policy Director of the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, whined, quote, "This is about creating a profitable culture of fear and do-it-yourself armed security, and there is no evidence that these laws promote public safety." But for the gun control nutbars like him, how is accusing other people of creating a culture of fear anything but confession through projection? The gun control nuts once again point to mass shootings, and once again ignore how easily mass shootings are foiled by armed citizens being present at the time. Such as Maya Friedberg of Students Demand Action, who whinged, quote, "This callous and reckless bill is an insult to every Texan who has been affected by gun violence." They'll likely continue on full Chicken Little mode and ignore the fact that their predictions of disaster and apocalypse have not come true in the other constitutional carry states I mentioned. They also ignore the fact that it only applies to people who can legally possess a gun to begin with. People prohibited from owning a firearm due to a criminal record or mental illness adjudication are still prohibited from carrying. But you'd never know that from listening to the gun control crazies. Of course, we've even had lefties opining falsely that the law only applies to white people, ignoring the fact that it will lead to fewer bogus police stops and arrests. Constitutional carry may well be the case in half the states in the country by the end of the year. It should be in all of the states by default. That's what it means to have a constitution, but at least things are trending in the right direction. Do you have children, or nieces or nephews? Are you homeschooling, or just want to counter some of the socialist indoctrination most children get in school? If so, go to bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins, and you'll be taken to a website where you can get some great books for elementary-aged children. The Tuttle Twins books are books about liberty and free market economics that include children's versions of Bastiat's The Law, Leonard Read's I, Pencil, and Hayek's The Road to Serfdom, as well as books about the Federal Reserve and how regulations protect business cronies. They'll learn about the harm caused by eminent domain, or regulations passed in the name of safety, and fundamental concepts of liberty. And as you can see from the sample pages on the website, they're all easy to read and nicely illustrated. They're just $9.99 a piece, or get a special discount as well as free bonuses when you purchase all 5. You can even buy in bulk to donate to schools and local libraries. So get the Tuttle Twins books at bogosity.tv/TuttleTwins. And now it's time to balkanize this week's biggest Bogon emitter. And this week it goes to the NYPD, as well as the Police Benevolent Association and the Detectives Endowment Association for openly defaming and defending the defamation of an innocent business manager. Marcus Gilliam, the manager of a shake stack in New York City, was illegally detained by police and taunted after he was falsely accused of poisoning 3 officers. The 3 officers, whose identity is being protected, of course, had been on protest detail following the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor when they stopped by the restaurant for milkshakes. Officers tasted the milkshakes, complained that they didn't taste right, and threw them in the trash. Gilliam apologized and offered them vouchers for free food and milkshakes. The officers accepted, and if they hadn't been complete psychopaths on a power trip, that would have been the end of it. Of course, it wasn't. The officers told their sergeant that Gilliam had tried to poison them by putting in their shakes a toxic substance they believed to be bleach. The sergeant went to the restaurant, declared it to be a crime scene, and unlawfully detained Gilliam and his co-workers. At one point, he instructed Gilliam to show him how the milkshakes were made, and as he did so, started berating him, asking when he added the bleach. He told Gilliam that the 3 officers were, quote, in the hospital, when in fact they'd just been examined at the hospital and released. At no point did the officers show any sign of illness. And as his lawsuit points out, since the orders were mobile orders and they had already been prepared when the officers arrived, Gilliam could not possibly have known it was police who placed the order. Gilliam was taken to the police station and interrogated for 3 hours, constantly being taunted about the bleach. Police tested the discarded shakes and found no evidence of bleach or any other toxic substance. Security footage confirmed that at no point had anyone tampered with the milkshakes. But that didn't stop the NYPD enlisting the help of the Police Benevolent Association and the Detectives Endowment Association, who proceeded to tweet out the false accusation of the cops as though it were verified fact. He's seeking damages for defamation and deprivation. Best of luck to him. So all of that makes the NYPD and these police unions this week's biggest Bogon emitter. I want to tell you about the eyeglasses I've been wearing for years. As people can see on my videos, I have a very strong prescription, which makes glasses more expensive, especially when I need computer glasses, reading glasses, prescription sunglasses, and most expensively, progressive lenses for general everyday wear. To save money while still getting quality glasses, I get them from Firmoo. In fact, I just got a pair of progressives with high-index aspherical lenses and a nice pair of frames my wife loves for just over $100. It would have been $500 to get them through my eye doctor. Not only do they look good, the glasses are durable. I've worn many pairs for several years without problems. All orders come with a 30-day return policy, a 3-month warranty, and one-on-one customer service. Go to Firmoo, that's FIRMOO.Bogosity.tv anytime you need quality glasses at a low price. Once again, that's Firmoo.Bogosity.tv. And now let's rigidify this week's Idiot Extraordinaire. And this week it goes to the House Transportation Committee for attempting to restart federal funding of red light cameras. A number of cities and states, even cities around the world, have attempted to use red light cameras to ticket violators. In every case, it's been shown to be a lucrative money-making scam for the government. Also in every case, it's been found to have done absolutely nothing to make drivers any safer. In fact, it's often made driving more dangerous since usually the yellow light time is shortened to create more violators. States have been prohibited since 2015 from using federal funds to purchase the cameras. Now, the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure is attempting to reverse that ban and even encourage local governments to set up red light cameras and perhaps even speeding cameras. They're calling the measure the Invest in America Act. Yeah. As per the 2015 bill, the NHTSA requested data about the effectiveness of speeding and red light cameras. The only state to properly deliver any real accident numbers was Florida, and that state's data showed a 17% increase in accidents in intersections that had red light cameras compared to the time before the cameras were installed. There are also numerous other problems, such as the failure to identify the driver of the car, just the license plate, and the difficulty, and in many cases impossibility, of contesting the ticket in court. These cameras have been around for decades, but they haven't really improved any because accuracy isn't the goal. It's about getting ticket money. So all of that makes the House Transportation Committee this week's Idiot Extraordinaire! Well, that wraps up this Sod It, Let's Go to McDonald's edition of the Bogosity podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go to donate.bogosity.tv for several ways to support and discord.bogosity.tv to join the discussion. Subscribe at Patreon or Subscribestar, and you can listen early and ad-free. Thank you for listening. Until next time, here's a quote from Larry Elder. A woman who demands further gun control legislation is like a chicken who roots for Colonel Sanders. The Bogosity podcast is licensed under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License.
Bogosity.
We live in a world where light bulbs connect to the internet, and recent attacks on them prove that your online security is under threat like never before. Not only your websites, but the internet-enabled devices you buy. And the biggest problem is weak passwords. That's why you need LastPass. LastPass allows you to randomly generate strong, unique passwords on the web and on your internet-enabled devices, all protected by one master password. LastPass sets up in minutes and gives you secure automatic logins throughout the web, synchronizing across all your browsers, all your computers, and even your mobile devices, at home, at work, or on the road. It even securely stores sensitive form data, including credit card numbers, backup sensitive documents, software licenses, Wi-Fi logins, and more. And with LastPass Premium, you can get these benefits on other applications, manage passwords for your entire family, and also get priority customer support. Sign up at password.bogosity.tv for a free month of LastPass Premium. Log in securely everywhere using the last password you'll ever have to remember. Go to password.bogosity.tv and get LastPass now.